Hello, this is Romanian, and I'm going to talk a bit about the new loadout feature, utility points that are now called abilities, and the second class you can choose. I logged in with a rarely played alt, so I can show you everything from the start. As you can see, he's still level 75, so I haven't done anything with him yet. Now if we open our character window, we have the gear on the first tab. This is pretty much the same as it used to be, only the looks of it has changed, obviously. And it's nice that the inventory is open right next to it now, so you can easily switch out gear that you might have there without juggling different overlapping windows. The outfitter also works pretty much the same as it used to. The only change apart from the looks is that you will automatically display the outfit you click on. You don't have to click a separate equip button anymore. And now, much more interesting, there's a tab that hasn't been there before called Loadouts. This is a great new feature, at least it's new to Swtor, even though it's been around in similar forms in other games for quite some time. They did a really good job with it, and we're going to have a good look at what it does and how it works here. So what are loadouts? They are presets for pretty much everything, your gear, your abilities, so slowly from the start. One is already preset, Loadout 1. That's not very helpful to tell you what it does, so you can change the name to whatever you prefer. So maybe I'm gonna change that to Concentration, which is the Sentinel's current discipline. Below the name it also tells you your current class and specialization, which is in this case Sentinel and Concentration. Now important, if you want to keep the current setting, you have to save it. And that's the icon to the far right, unfortunately not very intuitive, not the icon that I would expect as a save button, but that's what it looks like here. And it also says copy loadout. Also not very intuitive because we are not copying anything, that's just saving the current settings. I'm going to do that right away. Yes, I want to save it. And I can also create other loadouts. I'll just make one that has a different name. I'm going to be incredibly creative and call that Demo. There, Demo, saved. At the moment we have saved the exact same things for both loadouts. We're going to change that. So let's find out what you can save in this preset. Let's have a look at the gear this character has currently equipped. I go back to my gear tab and I'm just going to equip something else for demonstration purposes, not something that makes sense, just something where you can see at first glance that something has changed. So I have a yellow headpiece equipped and I'm going to change it into a blue one. Back to the loadout tab, I can now save that as my new gear for the demo loadout. And if I want to switch between different gear, I can do that now by clicking on the loadout name. And then here below on activate, and there we go, blue switches to yellow with just a click. Now that works with all gear slots. You can have entirely different gear and weapons and tacticals and whatnot equipped, and can switch out all of it with just one click. Now I only have to activate it to actually equip it. You need to have the gear with you for it to work though. So we've seen already this is really useful just for switching between different gear. But the loadouts can do a lot more. Let's have a look at what else is on this tab here. You see on the left hand side there are certain abilities that are obviously already preset, and they are saved now both for this loadout and this loadout because we haven't changed any abilities yet. So let's go do that. That's what the combat styles tab is for. We go to the combat styles. We can see I'm a Sentinel and I'm currently in the Concentration discipline. To the right we have the ability tree. Now the abilities are what used to be the utility points, and how that works has changed a bit, but it's actually more intuitive once you get over the shock of something not being as it used to be. Now you can pick 1 out of 3 abilities per row, and that makes your abilities highly customizable for your playstyle and for specific fights. You don't have to reset all utilities anymore if you want to change one thing. You just switch out the one ability in one row for a different one. So for example, if I don't want to have this ability that was preset already, but I want to have this ability here, I can change that with just one click. And I can do that for every row. If I want to keep my new settings for my current loadout, I have to go back to the loadouts and save it for the respective loadout where I want to use this ability. So let's check something that we can see change at first glance again. Back to the demo loadout. And I have here debilitating slashes set. And let's assume I want to change that back to the abilities. And let's say I want to change that to snaring slash for some reason. I change it here, I go to my loadout. I can already see, that has changed. Now snaring slash is set here. And now I only have to save the loadout again. And now I have here my snaring slash, and I have my blue headpiece here, and if I want to change to my other gear and my other abilities, I just click on the other loadout, click activate, and there it is. But we're not done yet. That's still not everything the loadout can do for you. Back to the combat styles. You not only have your ability tree here, you also have your abilities here. The same thing that also opens when you press the P key. I really recommend checking them all because some of the old abilities were removed from the game and some just got removed from your action bars even though they are still available. Since we're already here, you also have a drop-down menu here in the abilities and that has changed a little. You don't have two separate tabs for Knight and Sentinel anymore, or Trooper and Commando, or whatever your class and advanced classes are, but all your abilities are now in one tab, Sentinel in this case. And the other thing worth mentioning here is that the vehicles are still here, but you have to scroll down to see them. So that's not very intuitive, unfortunately. It would have been nice if they just displayed that one more row, or if they'd given us a scroll bar so you could see that you can actually scroll down here. But the vehicles are where they used to be, just below the pets as always. Okay, so let's say I want different abilities in my action bars for different scenarios. I just pick one ability, doesn't matter which one for this demo, and I place it down here in my action bar number 3. Now I save my loadout again. So now I have this ability in my action bar, I have the blue headpiece equipped, and I have the snaring slash ability set in this demo loadout. I go back to my concentration loadout, activate, the ability is gone from my action bar, the yellow headpiece is equipped now, and instead of the snaring slash, I have debilitating slashes active again. So this is a really powerful tool because you can switch all of that with one click. And we're still not done. It goes even further than that. I can create a new loadout and I'm gonna call that Watchman. Going back to the combat style, you can see here the disciplines of the Sentinel and this one is currently in the concentration discipline. We can set all our desired disciplines to a loadout. So I want to create a loadout for Watchman. Switching. Don't worry, you're not going to lose your old spec. Now you can see the contents of my action bars have changed, because the Watchman has different abilities than the Concentration Sentinel, obviously. Of course, the abilities aren't in any kind of order that makes sense, you still have to do that yourself. So for demo purposes, I am just going to place some random abilities in my action bar here. This one in the middle, this one right next to it, and this one, so we can just see something has changed. I can go to the abilities tree again. Certain abilities are preset, so you could start right away, and if you don't want them, you can just switch them out to whatever you need. One ability per row. Maybe let's switch to this one, so we have something different again in the first slot on the loadouts. And maybe for a different discipline, I also want some different gear, so I just slot yet another different headpiece. That's now the Undying Visor. Back to the loadouts, and I say yes, I want to save that. Now I can not only change between different gear, different abilities, different things in my action bars, but I can also change between different disciplines with one click. So I have now two different settings for the concentration discipline and one setting for the Watchman discipline. Again, the loadout also displays your set class and discipline under the name. And if I switch between these two, again with one click, everything changes, the gear changes, the abilities change, the discipline changes, and what I have in my action bar changes. And this goes even further. We can go back to the combat styles and we have this available option here. Now that's something that you might have heard rumors about. You can play two classes in one now. The only restriction is that Force users can only be other Force users, non-Force users only other non-Force users. And now it depends. If you've already got the Light 5 and Dark 5 achievements on some character, you can also choose a class from the other faction. So how does that work? Even if you haven't done anything else in the new expansion yet, you automatically get the training in the Force quest, and it displays in your mission tracker. So I want to launch that now. And what happens here is that you get the option to choose a second class that you can play with your character without losing your first class. And not only can you play the same class that you already have in the dark side version of the game, in that case that would be the Marauder, I can be a Sentinel and additionally a Guardian. Or I could be a Sentinel and a Shadow. or I could be a Sentinel and a Sage, or any combination with the corresponding dark side classes. That means for the first time, if you've been playing a Sentinel, you can also be a healer at the same time, just by switching to the Sage. Or you can be a tank just by choosing the Guardian or Shadow as your second class. And keep in mind, you're not going to lose your Sentinel, it's just an additional class that you can pick for the character. You can watch all the previews, you'll get prompted if you really want that plenty of times. And once you've chosen, that choice is permanent. For this jar it doesn't matter, and I'm just going to make him a Shadow, for example. So you get plenty of chances to not do that if you're not 100% sure. Okay, and now that I've chosen another class, I'm going to open the character window again. I go to the Combat Styles tab, and there I see the Shadow. So now I can create a new loadout for a new class. So I go to the Loadouts, create a loadout that I call Shadow. Back to Combat Styles, I choose the Shadow, get a warning, changing this will change your current loadout Shadow and will reset your ability layout. Yes, of course, because the Shadow has different abilities than the Sentinel. So yes, I want to do that. Oh, okay. He's not wearing a lot now, so we might want to change that. The class-specific gear got unequipped here. Okay, I only have a belt and boots that he can wear now. Quite enough, one should think. And maybe use the outfitter so you don't get too distracted. Okay, now, my Shadow has only those two gear pieces equipped. I go to the ability tree. Again, you can start right away because there are abilities already preset, or you can pick the ones you want. And right now he's set to Infiltration, which is a damage spec, but I can just as well decide to make him Kinetic Combat, which will make him a tank. The abilities have changed, they are now all the nice tanking abilities. Again, not in any specific order, I would have to place the abilities where I want them myself, of course. So now he's a tank, and let's say I'm happy with the current abilities and action bars, I can go to Loadouts, I will have to save that again, and now it says Shadow Kinetic Combat. So my former concentration Sentinel is now a Shadow tank. And now I can switch between those two classes and the abilities that come with it, and whatever I have put into my action bars, and whatever gear I had equipped in the respective loadout. So let's say I want to go back to my Sentinel setting. I have the different gear in here, or in this case, any gear at all. I have the different abilities, different stuff in my action bar, and I just click activate, and here we go. I'm back to a concentration Sentinel with one click. Just make sure you have the gear you want to switch to with you. So that's a very powerful new feature that we have available. I hope I could help you a bit getting to know this new feature. Thanks for watching and enjoy your new powers.